This is the Bambu Lab A2L, which is the largest open bed printer that they've made, and it is quite large and quite in charge right now. Bambu did send the A2L and the AMS Lite at no cost, but as always, I'm under no obligation to say anything, do anything, make a video. Nobody sees this video before it comes out except for me and my own eyeballs. And while I do think this is a really awesome printer, and I think there are some people that this is going to be a perfect printer for, especially with some of the add-ons that it can have, I personally do prefer the enclosed Core XY style of like the P2S, X2D, H2C, the other printers that I have. So this printer, as much as I like it, it's not something that really fits in my workflow. So once I'm done using it and checking it out and seeing what it can do, there's a local middle school with a really cool 3D printing program that I'm going to donate the printer to. I was a high school teacher for 11 years, so I definitely know the difference that good equipment can make to programs like that. And I always love it when gear gets used rather than sitting on shelves. So the fact that this can go to a place where students can use it and get, learn about 3D printing and get excited about 3D printing, I think is pretty cool. And this is also definitely not a super spec heavy video. I think there are a lot of channels that are way better at going into the technical side of things than me. When Bambu asked if I wanted to check out the printer, I was just excited to explore it. So I kind of wanted to share my real world user experience with the printer so far and just sort of let you know what it's like, because this was the 3D printer I had up until I got my P2S. This is the Prusa Mini. I did have the Prusa MK2 prior to this, and this is a very solid printer, but it's 7 years old, 8 years old at this point. It's getting up there. And if I had gone straight from the Prusa Mini to the A2L, the L would have been a huge W because it would have felt like I just leapt so far into the future. But my first experience into modern 3D printing was with the P2S, and that still blows my mind how easy to set up the printer is, high quality it is, and just everything it can do, especially for the price. It is all absolutely incredible. So going to the A2L, in a lot of ways, kind of felt like going back a little bit, although it is beyond what I was using before. And that has nothing to do with print quality. The print quality of the A2L is absolutely excellent, as it should be, as you would expect. That's sort of like the bare minimum with a Bambu printer is that it's going to have excellent print quality. That's the reason why they're so popular. But the setup and everything was a lot more like my older printers. It's not like crazy complicated or anything, but you do have to spend some time putting things together. You can definitely make mistakes. Even on the printer, where is it? There's a cord that plugs in right back here. It looks just like a USB-C cable, but it has to go one way and not the other way, even though it can fit both ways. And there is a little sticker that says this side up. But when I took it out of the package, the sticker was facing down, so I didn't see it. It looked like USB-C. I plugged it in, built the whole printer, and then I could not get the printer to run through the calibration process or do anything. It kept giving me errors. I had no idea what was going on, and then I had to take that apart, which even though it seems like it's only a USB-C cable, it's really not meant to be plugged in and removed frequently, so it was a little bit difficult to flip that around. Problems like that are more likely to pop up in this type of assembly than they are with something like the P2S, where you can literally spend maybe 10 minutes like putting parts of the printer together and plugging stuff in, and then the rest of your setup process is just the printer calibrating itself. This is, you got to put stuff together. There's a little more room for error, as I discovered. So just go into it with a little bit of patience, read the instructions, and most importantly, watch the assembly videos, the instructional videos where they show you exactly how to orient things and what to do, because there are several pieces that you can easily flip backwards or sideways, and you need to make sure that those are in the correct orientation. Now, once I had it correctly assembled and started printing, I have had zero issues. It has worked great the entire time. As tradition dictates, I started with the benchy print that's already just preloaded on the printer, and it printed overall great. It was super fast. It was kind of crazy to see a bed slinging printer of this size printing that fast. That kind of blew my mind. And that is something to keep in mind, is that this is a bed slinger, so the bed has to move beyond the rear of the printer and even in front of the printer. So not only is the printer itself large, but it actually needs more space. Let me grab a thing here. This might not be the most scientific way to do this, but if I go from here to here, the total clearance for the bed is about 28 inches. But then there is this cable right here, so you really need about 36 inches of depth for the printer. So that means like this table is not really wide enough. Like I basically kept it in our garage kind of at an angle where it would actually fit, and that's where I had to put the printer. So the first benchy I printed, which was also my first time using the AMS light, which overall is actually a D-light to use. It's just as easy to load filament, although organizing the tubes and making sure you have the right lengths of tubes wasn't tricky. It's just something you have to pay attention to. Otherwise, it's worked really well. It's read the filament. The only thing, obviously, well, not the only thing, but a difference between this and the other like AMS 2 Pro units that I have is this can't do any kind of drying or anything like that. But it's also an open printer, so we're not getting into like high temperatures and crazy filaments. There are 2 data port units on the back. I'm using one right now for my AMS light, and then there is a micro SD card slot on the front. Now, when I did my first benchy print, I used PLA Silk. This was Bambu Silk, which is a little tougher than normal PLA to print with. And this was a very fast benchy, but if you look especially at the window on the back, it doesn't look super fantastic. Now, I don't think that was a really fair print to start with the printer. So I did print a second benchy just in regular Bambu PLA in this yellow right here. And you can see then on the back, it's super clean. It came out great and it was just as quick. So I think I could have gotten the same quality here if I had just gone a little slower with the silk filament, but with regular filament, absolutely no problem at all. And that is what Bambu says. This is really intended to be a PLA PETG printer. There are definitely people with the A-series printers that print other filaments, and there are ways that you can make that happen, but it's really not what it's intended for. And that goes to one of the points, which is that the bed can only heat up to 80 degrees Celsius. So when you're looking at the A1, my initial thought with the A2L was, oh, it's just a bigger A1, which it kind of is, but then why isn't it called the A1L? Why is it the A2L? And that is because, as I understand it, I haven't used the A1, so I don't have a direct comparison, but there are some upgrades just kind of throughout the printer. There are some features that needed to be added because it is larger. It has like a whole different way of doing like vibration compensation and trying to maintain stability while printing, because you have this giant build plate going back and forth sometimes at high speeds. So that's a thing. And then also inside there are, I guess, some upgraded internals which let it be a little more compatible with the second generation Bambu printers and let you do things like pair the AMS Lite with an AMS 2 Pro. And so you can actually mix and match those if you want with this printer, which is cool. So if you get the combo that comes with the light and then you want to add the AMS Pro 2 later on, you can do that. But the one area where there's a downgrade from the A1 is that the build plate doesn't get as hot as the A1's does. And again, at least according to what I read on Bambu's FAQ page, that's because the printer is intended for PLA, PETG, so they don't need beyond 80 degrees Celsius anyway. And because this is a super large build plate on an open printer, where you're not actively heating a chamber or anything, maintaining anything above 80 degrees Celsius evenly on the build plate is just difficult and also requires a huge power draw, just not ideal. So this is not a printer. Don't get this if you have like an ABS or an engineering filament workflow. It's just really not what it's intended for. And it's kind of obvious when you look at the price of the printer. I don't know what the A stands for, if anything, but in my mind, the A-series printers have always stood for accessible, because they're the ones that make 3D printing accessible. There are a lot of people's first printers. The A1 Mini is super affordable. The regular A1, what is the price of that? $299 just for the printer and $399 for the combo with the AMS Lite. And then the A2L's price is $469 for the printer and $569 for the combo with the AMS Lite. So it is an interesting price. And at first I was kind of like, oh, $569, huh? Because the P2S is $549 for just the printer. So the combo is $20 more than the enclosed P2S. The P2S with the AMS is $799, so that's more expensive. The P1S now, the printer is $399. So the P1S is $70 cheaper than this for just the printer. The P1S for the original AMS combo is $549. So that's $10 less. You can get the P1S enclosed printer with the original AMS unit for $10 less than this. And then the P1S with the AMS 2 Pro with the modern AMS is $599. So that is $30 more. And that's kind of, to me at first, I kind of thought that was strange, but then obviously the biggest difference is the build plate size. Because it doesn't really matter if the P2S or the P1S are kind of in the same price range. If you need a larger printer, is kind of irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter what those printers cost because you need something larger than that. And if you want a larger printer that's enclosed like those are, the least expensive option in the Bambu lineup is the H2S, which for the printer by itself is $1249, and with the AMS is $1499. So that's way more expensive, especially if you're looking at the combo. That's $1,500 versus $570. So that's really what this printer is for. Accessibility, in this case, means that it's making large printing accessible to more people. And I think there are a lot of people who are really gonna love that, especially, I think this printer is going to be a huge hit in the cosplay community, where people are making costumes and things. And this build plate, here I can show you. This is a build plate size from the P2S, X2D, P1S, and this is the build plate from my H2C, which is the exact same build plate as on the A2L. So this is 330 by 320 by 325. The other, like the P series printers and stuff, are 256, 256, 256. So here is the, the P2S, P1S, X2D versus the A2L, or also the H2C. Now, what is interesting is the H2C is the smallest build plate of Bambu's larger printers. Like the H2D and the H2S both have larger build plates. So I don't know why they didn't go with one of those bigger ones. I don't know, but this is still pretty big. So you can see a difference here. Now imagine you're trying to print something like a headpiece or helmet or whatever for like a cosplay thing. You're printing on this size, you might be able to fit it, especially if you kind of do the, the 256 cube. You might have to do it in two pieces. But if you're doing this size with the height that this can go to, now you could potentially print those things all in one piece, or you could print it in two pieces instead of four pieces, stuff like that. So I think that kind of thing, especially at this price point, is, I don't know, that's a community that I feel like would really gravitate towards this printer, especially, I'll talk about this a little later, because you can also add on cutting and plotting heads, so that way you can even do more than just printing with it, which is also something you can do with the larger printers as well. So it really does make the larger print capabilities and some of the features of Bambu's larger printers available at, a more accessible price point. Now, whether you get the combo or just the printer by itself, it does come with this external spool holder that goes on top of the printer and sort of just clips in like that. You can mount an external spool here. So I could add a fifth roll if I wanted to. There's also, which looks really cool, I saw this on Bambu's website, a beefier mount like this that just takes the whole AMS light and puts it up here, which would make this very, very tall, but this is taking up a lot of space, especially because you then need to add a poop chute on the side over there. So this is definitely by no means a compact printer. Like, you need to have space for this thing, and then you got, you got all these life support tubes and things. So it can be a little tough to fit in your workspace, but I think it is cool that the AMS can mount on the top here. And then, like I mentioned, you need a poop chute. I haven't used an A-series printer before. And basically when it needs to like eject waste, it kind of puts it in this little tray and shoots it out on the side here. And it really launches it. So if you have a poop chute, this is one made for the A1 that just fit here anyway. You kind of need to have a backboard, and then when you place it over there, it kind of catches the filament and then keeps it in the backboard. And if you're primarily going to print in PLA, it's a good idea to print the poop chute or the waste basket in PETG or something where PLA won't stick to it. And that way, as the warm little clumps of filament get shot out, they don't just stick to it and they actually like kind of fall and are easier to take out. Now, when this thing prints, like I mentioned, the quality is great. I've had zero issues. I've printed lots of parts, even some of these filament spools here with it. I have combined parts from prints on this with my other printers like the X2D, H2C and stuff. Everything's great. For the most part, you really can't tell a difference in print quality, but the one area that I was really curious and really concerned about was Wobble, because a thing that I really love about Core XY printers, enclosed printers, is that the build plate only moves up and down on the Z axis. It doesn't move all around. And so when you're printing bigger things, especially taller, skinnier objects, there's less of a chance of them failing. When you're using a build plate that's moving around like this, and then the thing you're building is tall and skinny, there's more of a chance of it coming loose and getting knocked down and failing. Now, supposedly, that is something that Bambu has addressed with the motors and the way that everything compensates and calibrates and all that stuff. And I will say, so far, knock on wood, I've never had a print fail on the A2L. I did do just a simple wobble test with these tall things here. The yellow one was printed on the A2L, and the green one was printed on my P2S. They do have a little skirt here, but that is basically the whole thing, is as this goes back and forth, is it going to wobble? Is it going to become unstable and then become, detached from the build plate and then fail? I was happy and kind of surprised to see that the A2L handled it totally fine. It didn't even come close to messing up at all. The only thing I've noticed, and I'm not sure, maybe the yellow is not the best color to show this, is on the side, kind of right here, there are like 2 layer lines, and that I don't know why those are there. They're not on the one I printed on the P2S. This is both just standard PLA. This is actually the gradient green PLA, which is super cool. So it's like, it's green, but it's kind of 2 different colors. I really like that. This is just standard yellow, PLA basic. So I don't know if that was a Z-axis thing or a calibration thing or what, but those are really the only imperfections I noticed, and that's about as, I guess this is about as tall as the P2S could handle. Maybe I should have done on the H2C and then it would have gone taller, but I have no doubt that even if it had been a little bit taller, it still would have been fine because it did a great job. Now, another option with this printer, which is also why I think it's gonna be a huge hit in the cosplay community, which Bambu sent, but I haven't had a chance to tinker with yet, and I have to go out of town for a bit, so I'll have to do a separate video about this, but this is the cutting module kit, which I'm actually very, very excited about. As far as I understand it, this is the same kit that's been available for the H series printers for a while, and I actually didn't know that was even a thing, which is super cool. And basically what this does is it has 2 different modules, so you can replace part of the tool head with this, which has a cutter on it, and then it also has an attachment here to hold a pen. So that means you can do drawings, you can put kind of like any kind of marker or pen in there, and you can do, drawings and stuff, or you can cut things out. So that also means if you're cutting through materials like leather, some fabrics, vinyl, sticker kind of stuff, you can do a lot more than just 3D printing here. I have heard good things about this. I'm super excited about this. I want to try it on here and see how well it works. And then I also want to try it, I think this works at least to some degree on the H2C, so I want to try it on there as well. And basically, since you are going to be like cutting and doing non-printing things, it includes a different build plate that's specifically designed for that. So you don't want to use, or maybe you can't even use the standard build plate, you need to use this special one here. But this cutting module, I had the price here. The cutting upgrade kit is $69. So if you want to be able to cut and plot, it's an extra $69 for this kit here. And then if you want this with some materials, if you want it to come with some, things that you can actually use to cut and stuff like that, there's an option for $113. So this is a pretty awesome and super capable printer for the price. And I think, especially as I mentioned a while ago, if I had gone straight from my Prusa printer, my old printer, to this, I would have felt like I was in Star Trek or something. But going from the, the enclosed printers, the higher end printers, to this, there are some things that are like upgrades from other printers, but then downgrades from those, kind of like small details. The screen, for example, is way nicer than anything that's on like my Prusa printers or anything. And it's actually, nicer and more functional than like the P1S screen. But all my other printers, P2S, X2D, H2C, way nicer screen experiences. This is smaller, lower res. It's just not quite as, premium of an experience as those ones have. And then the other thing is the camera itself, which this has a camera. My old Prusa printers never had cameras. I always wanted to like do one of those like Octoprint upgrades or whatever where you could add a camera to it. I never figured out how to do that. So the fact that Bambu printers at all had cameras included, I thought was really cool. The camera module is over here. And while the printer's printing either from the app or directly on the printer itself, you can push a button that will turn this little light on or off. And there is a privacy cover you can slide over the camera lens if you want it. But the camera itself is significantly lower quality than the other printers. So much better than the Prusas I had, which had 0 cameras, but it's definitely not on the same level as my other printers. This is the X2D, which has the exact same camera system as the P2S. And this is now the H2C, which it's easy to see that it has a much sharper and clearer camera even than that. But both are doing, I think they're doing 30 frames per second. It's basically just real-time video with very, very little lag or latency. And then this over here is the A2L. If I turn on that camera, it's sort of a strange angle. It's like the camera almost feels too low, but I feel like if you're doing a tall print as, it rises, then it would be proper. Right now, we're just seeing the side of the printer, but you can also see the FPS is like, I mean, it's, you know, less than 1 frame per second. It's very stop motion-y. It's kind of good for monitoring like that the print is still there and stuff is still happening, but it's not the real-time like video of the H2C, X2D, P2S. I think this is more similar to the rest of the A series printers and even the P1S, which I haven't used those, but just from what I've seen in other videos, this looks really similar to that. So overall, I've had a great experience with the A2L. At first, when it was like, oh, it's an open bed printer, I was kind of like, oh, you know, that's not usually what I prefer or what's in my workflow, so I was almost a little bit bummed. But then once I started using it, and I started to think of who would benefit from a large printer at this price point, it really did start to make a lot more sense, and I'm excited to see what people do with this, because there's so much you can do with the H series printers with Bambu's larger printers already, but making that, you know, those size capabilities more accessible at a lower price point, you know, that means more people can use it. And then especially making it compatible with those cutting modules and stuff. I feel like there's some really cool options for some fun and creative stuff to happen. Now, if you do want to know more about my other printers, I have videos on all of them, so be sure to check those out. And then I do need to do some more videos on this, especially larger prints and the cutting modules, which I'm super excited about.